Hi guys, we'll be starting with lesson 15, the Registration Act 1908. Now let's say when you buy a property, you will execute or enter into a sale deed. Now this sale deed, this document needs to be registered with the government. So once you register this with the government will come to know that the ownerships have changed and they will record the change in ownership. Now can you tell me why should we register it? Why would the law make you register certain documents with the government? Very simple, so that the government comes to know that the transaction has taken place. It will prevent any frauds, since the next person, anyone can check the title. If today I want to know who is the owner of your house, I can go into the registry and check the entire title flow. This entire registration of documents is covered in the Registration Act 1908. It's a very important act. Whenever property is bought and sold, there is a document that is entered like a sale deed. This sale deed needs to be registered with government. When I say registered with government, means what? Means you have to place the document with the government. Once you keep it with the government, it comes in the public record or public domain. Anyone can find out by doing a title search who is the owner of the property. So the government charges a registration fee. This registration fee is basically to hold the document, to keep it, to preserve the document with the government. Now let's understand what is the difference between a stamp duty and registration. So when a sale deed is made, sale deed बनाते हैं, तो ये sale deed पे stamp duty भी पे करते हैं और इसके ऊपर registration fee भी भरनी पड़ती है. The stamp duty is to raise revenue. Okay, it's a revenue to the government. Just like a tax, the state government charges a stamp duty. Stamp duty is a revenue to the government. Whereas a registration fee, the purpose of collecting a registration fee is charged by the state government to keep a document in public domain. So the documents, they will preserve it, they will keep it. So for that they charge a registration fee. Now why should a document be asked to be registered? सोचो यहाँ पे buyer है और यहाँ पे seller है. You think the buyer should just make the payment to the seller कि हाँ ठीक है तुम्हारी property इतना पैसा लो? Answer is no. The buyer will first check whether the title, that is the ownership of the seller, is clear or no. The buyer can go into the governmental records. They will do something called as a title search report, a TSR. They will come to know who is the owner of the title, owner of the property. So this they can get it from the government records, and then they will come to know who is the real owner and whether he is entitled to sell or no. Only then he should make the payment. So many times we see frauds happening where a person doesn't have proper rights, clear title, and tries to sell the property. So the buyer must have paid the money and now there is a case of fraud. Now let's understand what is the benefits. First is it acts as a proof that the transaction has taken place. Government को पता चल जाएगा कि एक transaction हुआ है. Generally कैसे होता है, मैंने सेल डीड, तुम्हारे और मेरे बीच में एग्रीमेंट हो गया, हम लोग ने सेल डीड बना लिया, साइन कर लिया, स्टैम्प ड्यूटी भर दी है. फिर हम लोग रजिस्ट्रार के पास में जाएंगे, वो रजिस्ट्रार हमें एक डेट देगा जिधर both the parties will have to go. They will in presence of the registering officer, they will see and confirm that the transaction has taken place. You will have to place it with them, pay your registration fee, and then a stamp will be given that the document is registered. The government will then in their records state that the ownership has changed. On registration, your ownership becomes complete. The new person will become the owner. Okay, if registration is not made, now if I don't make, how do you think government will come to know who is the owner? The process of verification and certification becomes of the title, that is the ownership, becomes very difficult. It helps in protection from fraud and forgery of documents as the documents come in public domain. So as I can find out who is the owner of your property, so I know who can sell your property and nobody else or a third person can come and try to sell the property. The registration of document reduces the disputes and litigations to a very large extent. Now, all documents do not require registration. Section 17 contains the documents for which registration is compulsory. Section 18 contains documents for which registration is optional. Now, let's understand. If there is a document, okay, and the document is with respect to sale of immovable property, do you think government should tell कि ये तो बड़ा transaction है, आप लोग please आके registration करवा लो government के records में? So you will have to go to the government authority, pay the registration fee and record it in the government. Do you think this kind of document should be required compulsory registration? Answer is yes. तो ऐसे sale of immovable properties रहते हैं जिधर high value transactions होते हैं, they say please come and register it, only then the transaction we will accept that it is valid and give effect. But let's say there is a sale of movable property. Sale of movable property. For example, मैंने मेरा furniture बेचा. I sold my furniture. प्रॉपर्टी मैंने OLX पे भेज दिया. तुमको लग रहा है मेरे को गवर्नमेंट के रिकॉर्ड में जाके ऐसा कुछ करना पड़ेगा? नहीं. तो ऐसे डॉक्यूमेंट्स के लिए रजिस्ट्रेशन इज ऑप्शनल एंड सर्टेन डॉक्यूमेंट्स के लिए वो कंपलसरी होता है. जो भी डॉक्यूमेंट्स, एक लिस्ट दिया है अंडर सेक्शन 17, जो भी सेक्शन 17 में आते हैं उसका रजिस्ट्रेशन कंपलसरी है. मार्केट इज इंपॉर्टेंट, इट हैज कम इन द एग्जाम. एंड ऑल अदर डॉक्यूमेंट्स के लिए registration is optional. You can do it if you want to. Now let's see section 17. Documents for which whose registration is compulsory. Important from exam point of view also. Section 17 subsection 1 contains documents whose registration is compulsory. First is a gift of immovable property, an instrument of a gift of immovable property. It's just a document by which I'm gifting a immovable property. This requires compulsory registration. For example, I am here, I want to gift my house. I want to gift, okay, my house to Mr. X, to let's say this person. Now I become the donor, the giver is the donor and this becomes the donee. Do you think this transaction requires compulsory registration? I am gifting a immovable property. Answer is yes. Section 17 में आया तो इसका registration compulsory है. Now इसके related थोड़े situational questions हैं. First, let's say that this is the donor, that is the person who is giving the gift, and to whom he is giving is the donee, is the recipient of the gift. तो यहाँ पे हो रहा है gift of immovable property. तो एक गिफ्ट डीड बनाया ये लोग ने, एक गिफ्ट डीड बना होगा. Now tell me one thing, as per section 17, is the registration of this document important or no? Do you have to go with the government and the registry and record it and place it with them and say आपके पास में एक record रखो ताकि government अपने end से इसका ownership change कर देगा? Answer is yes, it comes under section 17 subsection 1. Now इस गिफ्ट डीड तो बन गया, एग्जीक्यूट हो गया, सिग्नेचर्स हो गया, बट जब रजिस्ट्रेशन के लिए पास में आए, लेट्स से आई एग्जीक्यूट द डॉक्यूमेंट टुडे बट रजिस्ट्रेशन को टाइम मिलता है, सो व्हेन when they were going for registration, इतने में the donor died. So donor dies before registration. Should the registering officer accept the registration? So answer is yes. The registering officer cannot refuse a document, because the donor during his lifetime did everything to make the gift possible. So he did everything during his lifetime to make the gift possible, so the registering officer cannot refuse. So in case where the donor dies before registration, the document may be presented for registration after his death also. If registered, it will have the same effect as if it was registered during his lifetime. तो अगर डोनर मर भी गया, but during his lifetime he had made it the gift deed, he did everything to make the transfer valid, then the registration can still take place. On registration of the deed, the gift operates from the date of execution. Execution means signing. जब ओनर ने साइन किया तभी से उसका इफेक्ट हो जाएगा. Now, it was held in Kalyana Sundaram versus Karoppa that while registration is necessary for enforcement of a gift, registration is necessary, okay, for enforcing a gift, it does not suspend the gift until the registration actually takes place. सो गिफ्ट मैंने तुम्हें कर दिया डज नॉट मीन कि वो डिले होगा रजिस्ट्रेशन के लिए. द गिफ्ट इमीडिएटली टेक्स प्लेस. रजिस्ट्रेशन इज अ लीगल फॉर्मेलिटी दैट यू हैव टू कंप्लीट. सो फ्रॉम द डेट ऑफ साइनिंग ओनली इट ट्रांसफर्स. सो फॉर एग्जाम्पल, इफ आई हैव ट्रांसफर्ड टू यू ऑन दिस डेट, एग्जीक्यूशन डेट, रजिस्ट्रेशन यहां पे हुआ, तो इफेक्ट कब से आएगा? फ्रॉम द डेट ऑफ साइनिंग. Okay, so it does not wait till the registration is completed. Effect पहले से ही आ जाता है. When the instrument of gift has been handed over by the donor to the donee, and the donee has accepted it, and the donor has done everything in his power to complete the donation and to make it effect, then if it is presented by a person having necessary interest within the prescribed period, the registrar must register it. Means the same example as we had given, donor ने अपने lifetime में सब कुछ किया donation complete करने के लिए. So then the registration should, the registrar should register the document. Neither death nor express revocation of the donor is a ground for refusing registration. So once the donor has gifted the property and the donee has accepted it, plus acceptance by donee, then the gift is valid and the registration can take place. The donor also cannot then refuse it. एक बार उसने दे दिया, gift कर दिया, then you can't revoke it. Now, illustration. Delay in registration of a gift does not postpone its operation. जैसे हम लोग ने देखा था, it operates from the date of execution. Signing के डेट से. Registration तो बाद में होगा. Section 123, which talks about gift, merely requires that the donor should have signed the deed of gift. Hence, a gift deed can be registered even if the donor does not agree to its registration. What is the requirement of a gift? That it should be signed by donor. Okay, and it must be accepted by donee. By donee. अगर ये दोनों complete हो गया, then the donor also cannot revoke his gift because वो ट्रांसफर हो जाता है ओनरशिप का, खाली रजिस्ट्रेशन की फॉर्मेलिटी बाकी है. सो पहला वाला where registration is necessary, section 17 subsection 1 subclause A, that is a gift of immovable property requires compulsory registration. B देखते हैं. Then the second is other non-testamentary instruments. Now इसका जो language है ये थोड़ा tough है but throughout same हो जाएगा once you understand it. So other non-testamentary instrument. Non-testamentary means non-will. So other non-will instruments, will के लिए optional registration है. So other non-will instruments which purport or operate to CSEET RTI of a value of ₹100 और upwards, इसका भी registration compulsory है. मतलब क्या, non-will documents, will का तो optional registration है. So non-will, other than will documents जो है which purport or operate to CSEET, create, declare, assign, limit, extinguish any right, title or interest of a immovable property of a value of ₹100 or upwards. मतलब क्या, imagine अगर मैंने एक सेल किया है तो I created right, title, interest in a value of immovable property of ₹100 or upwards. Now why is that ₹100 or upwards? Do you know any immovable property जो ₹100 के नीचे है? नहीं तो, but this act was olden times, तो वो ₹100 ही रखा है. Simply meaning that अभी तो सभी immovable property ₹100 के ऊपर है, तो सभी ही properties को register करना जरूरी है. So every other non-will instruments which purport or operate to CSEET, that is create, declare, assign, limit or extinguish right, title, interest in a property, immovable property of ₹100 or upwards. So which purport or operate to create, declare, assign, limit or extinguish, whether now or in future, of any RTI, whether vested or contingent, whether conditional or non-conditional, of a value of ₹100 or upwards in an immovable property. So simple meaning I could say is immovable property of ₹100 और upwards का ट्रांसफर हो रहा है तो इसका रजिस्ट्रेशन करना जरूरी है. A document which is plainly intended to operate immediately is non-testamentary. Non-will, non-testamentary means what? Non-will. Will क्या होता है? When does it operate? After the person death. So अगर मैं कोई डॉक्यूमेंट बोल रहा हूं कि वो आज से ही ट्रांसफर हो जाएगा, मेरे ही लाइफ टाइम में ट्रांसफर होगा, तो वो एक नॉन विल डॉक्यूमेंट हो गया. इट इज नॉन टेस्टामेंटरी डॉक्यूमेंट. सो और डॉक्यूमेंट विच इज प्लेनली इंटेंडेड टू ऑपरेट इमीडिएटली, अभी के अभी ट्रांसफर करवा रहा हूं, तो विल तो नहीं है वो, इट इज अ नॉन विल डॉक्यूमेंट. उमराव सिंह वर्सेस लाचमन. डिस्क्रिप्शन ऑफ अ डॉक्यूमेंट एज अ विल डज नॉट मेक इट अ विल. So just by saying that it is a will does not make it a will. You will have to go into the context, the language to see whether it has all the essentials of a will or not. तो कभी कभार वो लोग क्या कर देते हैं, टाइटल में will रख देंगे, बस अंदर बोलेंगे it operates immediately. Why like that? ताकि will का रजिस्ट्रेशन ऑप्शनल है तो रजिस्ट्रेशन फी बचा लेंगे वो लोग. तो बोले just by titling it will doesn't mean that it becomes a will. We'll have to see whether अगर immediate transfer हो रहा है तो it is a non-will document and registration is compulsory and you have to pay the registration charges. Now the third one, non-testamentary instruments, that is non-will instruments which acknowledge the receipt or payment of any consideration of any CDAL which any document with CDAL's RTI of 100 rupees or upward. इसका मतलब क्या है कि जो रिसीट क्लॉज होगा, एक रिसीट बनेगी. सपोज इफ आई हैव बॉट अ प्रॉपर्टी ऑफ 100 रुपीज और अपवर्ड्स, एक 2 करोड़ का घर खरीदा, तो वो सेल डीड तो रजिस्टर होगा ही, उसके साथ में वो रिसीट भी है जिसमें पेमेंट एक्नॉलेज हुआ है, acknowledgement that I hereby have received so and so money, that also has to be registered with the government. Next, a lease of immovable property is compulsory registrable if it is from year to year, exceeding for 1 year, or it reserves a yearly rent. देखोगे कहीं ना कहीं 12 months or more हुआ lease, so it requires compulsory registration. इसलिए कितने सारे रेंट अग्रीमेंट्स कितने टाइम के लिए होते हैं? 11 months के लिए रखते हैं वो लोग. क्यों 11 months? So that they can evade the registration fee. अगर because 12 months रखेंगे तो registration is compulsory. That means registration fee will have to be given. A transfer or a decree of order of court which purports to transfer or operate to transfer any immovable property of 100 rupees or upwards. Same logic. So these are the E points. So कौन से हैं? एक गिफ्ट ऑफ इमूवेबल प्रॉपर्टी. बी वाला क्या था? एनी इमूवेबल प्रॉपर्टी ऑफ 100 रुपीज और अपवर्ड्स जिसमें सीडेल हो रहा है आरटीआई का, वेदर इन प्रेजेंट और इन फ्यूचर, वेदर वेस्टेड और कंटिंजेंट. सिंपल सी बात है, 100 रुपए की ऊपर की प्रॉपर्टी हुई, ट्रांसफर हो रही है, तो उसका रजिस्ट्रेशन कंपलसरी है. सी पॉइंट में क्या था? इवन उसका रिसीट जो है, where I acknowledge the receipt, where I must have made a check payment, or I must have made a bank transfer, or I might have made a online transfer, तो वो भी एक रिसीट होगा, तो वो रिसीट को भी अटैच करना जरूरी है if it relates to a property which is of 100 rupees or upwards. D क्या था? Lease of more than 1 year or more. लास्ट में E, a order of court which tries to transfer a property of 100 rupees or upwards. Okay, this is your section 17 subsection 1. Now coming to your section 17 subsection 1A. The documents containing, now बहुत सिंपल है, एक ट्रांसफर ऑफ प्रॉपर्टी एक्ट में एक आएगा पार्ट परफॉर्मेंस का, सेक्शन 53A ऑफ द टोपा एक्ट 1882. Those documents also require compulsory registration. So if I have made a agreement with you and I am giving you possession, that document also should be registered. So the document which contains a contract to transfer for consideration any immovable property for the purpose of section 53A shall be registered if they have entered after this 2001, and if such document is not registered, they shall have no effect for the purpose of the said section 53A. 53A you will come to know in TOPA, it is about part performance. So if I as a part performance I have made a transfer of the money and you have given me possession of the property, तो मैंने बिल्डर के वो पैसे दिए और वहां का उसने मुझे जगह का पोजेशन दे दिया, इसका भी रजिस्ट्रेशन करना जरूरी है. नेक्स्ट, सेक्शन 17 सबसेक्शन 1 देखा, 1A देखा. अब सेक्शन 2, they are giving you certain instruments are exempted from section 17(1). that means जिनका registration optional है. So section 17 subsection 2 contains certain documents under section 17 which are exempted from registration, means they do not require registration. बहुत ही सिंपल है. देखो, अगर मैंने कोई इनकम टैक्स अथॉरिटीज किसकी प्रॉपर्टी बेच रही है, गवर्नमेंट किसी की प्रॉपर्टी बेच रही है, ओके, तो ये सब में रजिस्ट्रेशन कंपलसरी नहीं है. तो सेक्शन 17 contains certain exceptions to section 17.1. 17.1 is about compulsory registration. Your registration is not compulsory. That means it will be optional. They are as follows. A composition deed. Composition deed is basically a settlement deed between the debtor and creditor. Does not require registration. Any instrument of relating to shares in a joint stock company, just like a public company के जब हम लोग shares transfer करते हैं तो उसका रजिस्ट्रार और प्रॉपर्टीज के साथ में कोई रजिस्ट्रेशन नहीं करना पड़ता है. वैसे ही डिबेंचर्स का भी जब सेलिंग होता है, इशू भी होते डिबेंचर्स या ट्रांसफर भी होते डिबेंचर्स, उसका रजिस्ट्रेशन करना जरूरी नहीं है अंडर 1908. एनी ग्रांट ऑफ इमूवेबल प्रॉपर्टी बाय गवर्नमेंट, तो गवर्नमेंट किसी को प्रॉपर्टी दे रही है, सेल कर रही है, ट्रांसफर कर रही है, सो दे विल नॉट हैव टू रजिस्टर द डॉक्यूमेंट, ऑप्शनल है. एनी इंस्ट्रूमेंट फॉर पार्टीशन मेड बाय अ रेवेन्यू ऑफिसर, so revenue officer has made an order partitioning the property. Since this is a government authority, registration is not compulsory. Any order granting a loan of a collateral security granted under the Land Improvement Act, or any order granting a loan under the Agriculturist Loan, or same thing under Charitable Endowment Act 1890. मतलब क्या? Here, a agriculturist is mortgaging his property of a property of 100 rupees or upwards. तो ये सब में रजिस्ट्रेशन कंपलसरी नहीं है. एग्रीकल्चरिस्ट हो गया, मैंने कोलैटरल रखा था, मेरा घर गिरवी रखा था टू सिक्योर अ लोन, सो दैट डज नॉट रिक्वायर registration. It's exempted, so registration is optional. Sale by any civil or revenue officer, so ये भी important है, you can remember this, it has come in the exam. So if we see section 17(1) talks about compulsory registration. Section 17 subsection 2 contains documents which are exempted from registration. Now coming to section 18, which also contains certain documents for which registration is optional. Let's see. Now बहुत ही सिंपल है, डॉक्यूमेंट्स ये भी इंपॉर्टेंट है एग्जाम पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से. जैसे हमने वहां पे देखा था ऑफ 100 रुपीज और अपवर्ड्स का रजिस्ट्रेशन है कंपलसरी, तो दैट मीन्स बिलो दैट वैल्यू इट इज ऑप्शनल. सो इंस्ट्रूमेंट्स विच परपाउट और ऑपरेट टू सीडेल आरटीआई वेदर इन प्रेजेंट और इन फ्यूचर वेदर वेस्टेड और कंटेंजेंट ऑफ अ वैल्यू लेस ऑफ 100 रुपीज और 100 रुपीज इन अ इमूवेबल प्रॉपर्टी. उसकी रिसीट भी अगर 100 रुपीज से, receipt of that is also optional if the value of the property not exceeding 100 rupees. Lease of less than 1 year, not exceeding 1 year. Decree of court transferring a property which is less than 100 rupees. Again same उसका opposite. Any instrument of movable property, तुमने लैपटॉप बेचा तो उसका भी registration optional है. फर्नीचर बेचा, wills का भी registration optional है. And any other document not covered under section 17. All of these documents require optional registration. Now again super duper important, time limit for presentation of the document. कितने टाइम में registration करना है? तो सोचो अगर अभी आज let's say 1st Jan 2021 को साइन हो गया, the signatures मिल गए. सिग्नेचर्स का दूसरा मीनिंग क्या है? एग्जीक्यूशन. ओके, एग्जीक्यूशन कब हुआ? 1st Jan को दोनों पार्टीज ने साइन कर दिया. तो अब कितने टाइम में रजिस्टरिंग ऑफिसर के पास में जाके रजिस्टर करवा देना है डॉक्यूमेंट्स? सो आंसर इज इट शुड बी साइंड विद इन 4 months. In case of urgent necessity, the person was stuck up somewhere or it was out of his control, then 8 months. but a higher fees will be charged for this late registration. He was stuck up in some urgent work, because of which they couldn't come and do the registration. So they get 4 months extra, in total 8 months, but higher fee has to be given. These limits are mandatory. If the delay is due to court, it will be disregarded. तो गलती कोर्ट की थी, कोर्ट ने तुम्हें एक रॉन्ग एडवाइस दिया था, so then it can be disregarded and they can register the document. Unstamped documents. If the document is not sufficiently stamped, so जो stamp duty enough नहीं pay किया, so should registration be done? Answer is it can still be done. Penalty will be given in the Stamp Act. So if a document is not sufficiently stamped, its presentation is still good presentation. Registration के लिए हम लोग ले लेंगे. Stamp Act में तुमको penalty लग जाएगी for short payment. So registration can be done even if the document is inadequately stamped. कम stamp duty भरा है तो भी registration हो जाएगा. री-रजिस्ट्रेशन बहुत ही सिंपल सा है. सेक्शन 23 है. रॉन्ग पार्टी आई. सोचो मेरा घर है और मेरी सिस्टर जाके वो प्रॉपर्टी बेचना चाह रही है. सो इज शी द करेक्ट पार्टी? नो. सो इफ अ पर्सन हु इज नॉट ड्यूली ऑथराइज्ड, नॉट द करेक्ट पर्सन हैज कम फॉरवर्ड, दे विल से जाओ ओनर को बुला के लेके आओ, हम लोग ये रजिस्ट्रेशन नहीं कर रहे, आपको एक और तारीख देंगे. गेट द ओनर. दिस इज कॉल्ड एज री-रजिस्ट्रेशन. This section mainly deals with a situation where the original representation was done by a person not duly authorized. Thus, the right person should go for registration, otherwise re-registration will be ordered. Several executants. So जो 5-6 parties है, so सब 5-6 parties ने अभी sign किया, तो from that date within the next 4 months the registration should be done. So from the date of execution of each party within 4 months it should be registered. So it's better to take the signatures all at one day only. Okay, so then within the next 4 months you can get it registered. Otherwise if one signs here, another one signs here, another one signs here, so 4 months will apply from each signature. So then it gets a little complicated. Documents executed out of India. Mark karo important. What if the document is executed out of India? Then it should be presented for registration within 4 months after its arrival into India. So let's say I had gone on a trip with someone else. I have entered into an agreement, or I was working abroad. I entered into an agreement there. So the document is executed, that is signed abroad. A document executed outside India is not valid unless it is registered in India. Place of registration. Now where should you go and register? Common sense है, जिधर property situated है. So जो ये property यहाँ पे situated है. So जो I live in Bandra. So यहाँ से closest in this property is coming in whose jurisdiction or sub registrar, in whose jurisdiction area that property is coming, I will go and register with the closest registrar. But what if it is coming exactly 50-50, किसी और के भी सब रजिस्ट्रार में ये प्रॉपर्टी आ रही है, jurisdiction overlap हो रहा है. So then even if a certain portion is coming, half is coming here and half is coming here, then the party gets to choose whether he wants to register in this or this place. So section 28 states that the documents affecting immovable property shall be presented for registration in whose office of a sub-registrar the whole or some portion of the property is situated. Registration of a document elsewhere will be held to be void. Presentation of the document. Who is the correct person who can come for a presentation of the document? Section 23 specifies the person who can come to present the document for registration at the office, registration office. कौन कौन जा सकता है? Common sense है. Parties, the people who are executing, जो sign कर रहे वो, उनके रिप्रेजेंटेटिव या उनके एजेंट्स. If presented for registration by a person other than party not mentioned under 30, then such presentation is wholly inoperative and the registration of document is void. So the right person should come forward for registration, either the executants, signatories, their representatives or their agents. Registered document when operative. कब से ये ऑपरेट हो जाएगा? So it will be operating from the date of execution. सोचो हम लोग ये date of execution है, date of execution, और ये है date of registration. So कभी से इफेक्ट में होगा ये? So it will have a effect, operate from the date of execution. क्योंकि ऑब्वियसली मैंने तो अभी साइन कर दिया, रजिस्ट्रेशन बाद में होगा, बट इफेक्ट तो आज से ही हो जाता है. नाउ एज बिटवीन टू रजिस्टर्ड डॉक्यूमेंट्स द डेट ऑफ एग्जीक्यूशन डिटरमाइंस प्रायोरिटी. सोचो अगर डेट ऑफ एग्जीक्यूशन एक पार्टी के साथ मैं यहां पे कर दिया एंड एज अ फ्रॉडुलेंटली मैं किसी और को भी प्रॉपर्टी बेच रहा हूं, वो उसका डेट ऑफ एग्जीक्यूशन यहां पे है, जिसके साथ मैं फर्स्ट पे किया था. तो सोचो मेरा घर मैं तुमको बेच रहा हूं, नेक्स्ट डे किसी और को बुला के उसको भी बेच रहा हूं, तो डेट ऑफ एग्जीक्यूशन इसका फर्स्ट था और इसका सेकंड था. हु विल गेट प्रायोरिटी? किसके नाम पे रजिस्टर होगा? आई कॉल्ड यू, आई सेड यू कैन टेक माई प्रॉपर्टी, गिव मी द मनी, वी साइन द डॉक्यूमेंट्स, डेट आज की आई. यू गो, I call someone else and I say कि आपको भी ये प्रॉपर्टी बेच रहा हूं. बोलता नहीं हूं, मैं बोल रहा हूं तुमको ये प्रॉपर्टी बेचा, इट कलेक्ट द मनी. नाउ देयर विल बी अ डिस्प्यूट तुम्हारे और इनके बीच में. किसके नाम पे जाएगी प्रॉपर्टी? दोनों ने ही पैसे दिए. तो जिसका भी डेट पहले था, डेट ऑफ एग्जीक्यूशन, डेट ऑफ साइनिंग फर्स्ट था, ही विल गेट प्रायोरिटी, उसके नाम पे हो जाएगा. दूसरी पार्टी को केस करना पड़ेगा फ्रॉड का. Okay, so date of execution determines priority even if the other party, the second guy, comes for registration first. Registration पहले भी आ गया, but अगर कोर्ट में गया, कोर्ट यही देखेगी कि भाई डॉक्यूमेंट किसका पहले साइन था, डेट ऑफ एग्जीक्यूशन किसका पहले था. अगेन वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट, इफेक्ट ऑफ नॉन रजिस्ट्रेशन ऑफ डॉक्यूमेंट. व्हाट इफ आई डोंट रजिस्टर अ डॉक्यूमेंट? क्या होगा? So APE, APE, you can remember the word. Imagine a document which was required compulsory registration, but it was not registered. So what is the effect of non-registration of document? It will not confer any power. It will not affect the immovable property. Immovable property वैसी की वैसी ही रहेगी. Transfer will not take place. किसी को पावर नहीं मिलेगा प्रॉपर्टी के ऊपर, एंड इट कैनॉट बी टेकन एज एविडेंस इन कोर्ट ऑल्सो. सो अ डॉक्यूमेंट विच इज नॉट रजिस्टर्ड, okay, doesn't have much weightage, cannot be taken as evidence in court, it cannot confer any power on me also, I can't get any power, nor will it affect the immovable property. वो वैसा का वैसा ही रहेगा, ओनरशिप भी नहीं बदलेगा. Okay, so till all this will not happen unless it has been registered. Okay, in two exceptions they've given, even in evidence it can be taken even if it is unregistered, if it's for part performance under section 53A. part performance में है तो भी कोर्ट इसका डॉक्यूमेंट्स को एविडेंस में ले सकती है. and another one is suit for specific performance. So these two, even if registration is not done, it can be taken as only evidence in court. Now coming to miscellaneous provisions, a book is maintained, किसका registration किया है, किसका registration नहीं किया है, किसका refuse कर दिया. Book 2 records the reasons for refusal to register. So if a person has been refused registration, contain the reasons for refusal. जिसको दे दिया, a certificate of registration will be issued. containing that the word registered. If refusal is done, then from sub-registrar you can go to the registrar within 30 days. And if the registrar also refuses it, the registration, then you can go to the civil court within 30 days. And that is it. The exam questions are very simple. Yash signed a deed of gift in favor of Raja. तो उसने एक sign कर दिया deed of gift in favor of Raja. If Yash does not agree to its registration, will the gift deed be registered? Answer is yes. Whether delay in registration will postpone its operation? Answer is no. Okay, section 123, simply the donor should sign it. Explain the documents for which registration is optional. So we have a section 18 for will, less than 100, so on. And that is it. We are done with the. Then the third one comes 4 instruments which are exempted from the provision of section 17 subsection 1. ये दिया है अपना आंसर section 17 subsection 2 में. Their composition deed, transfer of shares, transfer of debentures, and government is doing, revenue officer is transferring, any mortgage for all these 3, they are all exempted. That is it. We are done with the chapter.